Hello everybody, welcome to my computer. We're just going to go through some introduction around Visual Studio to get you started today. First thing you'll want to do is open up the program, so hit the Windows key and start typing Visual Studio, and it should be the thing that is at the top of your list. Once that's started up, you'll notice that the program has lots of panels. The panels can be changed in size, you can close them down and open them up. If you accidentally close down things that you want to get back to and you're not sure how to do it, what you can do is you can go to the Windows menu and hit Reset Windows Layout. It'll ask if you're sure you want to do that, and then go back here, and now all the panels are back that we had before. The Team Explorer, Solutions Explorer, etc, etc. Most of the time you're not going to use any of these, but you can still reset the window. Okay, let's start a new project. Now, when we start a new project, a project is whenever we start to do an application or a piece of work. A project can have lots of different files inside it. Generally, when we're doing it, we'll have one file in for one project. So let's start a project. Now, the types of project that you could use is C# projects, Visual Basic projects, SQL, etc, etc, and even Python like we used the other day. Visual Basic is what we want, and we want to use the Windows Forms app. Now that gives us the ability to make a normal Windows application. Visual Basic can also be used for doing other things like web forms and Azure Cloud Services and a whole bunch of other things. We want to go Windows Forms app, make sure that's selected. Give it a name. We're just going to call this Project 1. But normally it would have a name that's to do with the task you want to do. So let's call that Project 1. And you'll notice that the solution name automatically is populated down here. I don't want to save this inside a Delaforce sources repos. I want to put this inside my OneDrive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my OneDrive, Digital Solutions, make myself a Visual Basics project, and then select that folder, so Visual Basic Projects, and if I tick the box there that says create directory for solution, it will make a brand new folder for my brand new project. When that starts, it'll take a little while to set itself up. It's getting everything ready in the background. Now, by default, when you start doing any of these projects, you get one form, and that's all you need at the moment. Your project could have multiple forms, and each of the forms would be its own file. Now let's have a look at the form. Inside the form we've got nothing. We've got basically a background and a colored edge and a few buttons. If I double click on the form, I'll see the coding that's sitting behind it. This is a special form. It's called the Form 1. You notice there that there's the name, Form 1. If we have a look over here, we've got the properties for our form, and there aren't any properties for our form at the moment because nothing's set up. Let's go back to our visual version. What we want to do here is we want to put some buttons and some text fields in here. So let's have a look at the toolbox. And the toolbox has got all the sorts of things that you can put into your form. Now I want to keep this open, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin it, and that way it makes my window nice and laid out correctly. So what I want to do is I want to put a button on my form, and what I want to do is when I press that button, I'd like a label. So I'm looking for my label, there it is. I'd like my label to change. So drag the label around until it's sort of in the middle. If you're not sure where it is, you can go up to Format, Align, no it is Center in Form horizontally, okay, and then I can do the same for the button. I can go Format, Center in Form horizontally, and those two things are now lined up. Now it doesn't look very interesting, does it? Let's have a look over here. Each item on my form has a set of properties. Let's go Label 1. Label 1 over here, I'm going to make this a bit bigger. Label 1 has got all of these properties. One of the main ones is its name. We need to change its name to LBL, let's call it output. because that's where we want the output of our message to be. LBL is short for label. If for button, we'll have BTN. We always use 3 letters if we can do, to tell us what sort of item we are dealing with. On top of this, we've got all of these different things here. I'd like to change this background color and make this maybe very light yellow, and I'd like to make the foreground color, which is the text, I'd like to make that nice and red because I want it to show up in this case. So there's red, and you notice it's already changed on there. So that's the four color property of that label. Let's go in here also inside the font. I'd like to make that bigger. I want to make that, say, let's make it nice and big, 28. Okay, there's 28. So now our label, it might have just gone off to one side a little bit, but we can set the alignment back up in a minute. Let's now make it so that when we click on this button, so let's give it a proper name. Let's call the text on this button, let's call this Hello World, and let's do a capital letter. And now let's have a look up here and look at the name of this thing. Actually, I need to go down and have a look at the name. And by the way, if these are getting in the way, what you can do is say, I don't need this at the moment, and fold it up. Don't need this at the moment, fold it up, etc. But don't fold everything up, because you will often need some of these things. This one here I'm going to call BTN, and I'm going to call this Hello W, just so I know what it is. Now, when you're doing abbreviations, don't abbreviate it so much that you don't understand what it is you're looking at. I've used it Hello W because it's obviously the only button on the form, and it's called Hello World. So let's have a look at this. What we would like to do is we'd like to make that do something when we click it. Okay, it won't do anything at the moment because we're in design view. Let's run our file. Let's have a look up here, and we'll go start, and it'll run the file, and it'll start. This is the actual application here. This is actually a Windows application, but when I click on it, it doesn't do anything. And when I double click on this, it doesn't do anything because I haven't told it to do anything yet. So let's fix that up. Close that. Okay, inside design view, double click on your button, and inside here it gives you all the code that you need to start working on your button. What I'd like to do is when I press the button, I want it to do an event, and the event will be aimed at the label. So let's say LBL, and it'll start to tell me all the things on the form I've already made. LBL output, and press, I can keep typing it, or I can press tab, and I'd like the LBL output dot TE, see it's got the text property. I would like that to be equal to Hello World. Hello World. So when I click on that, it's going to come out and change the output, LBL output, to Hello World. Now let's have a look at my form, and let's run it. Now, a shortcut way of running start is to use the F5 key, the function F5. Now if I click on this, it's changed my thing to Hello World. Another thing I might want to do, let's close that now, is I might like to make another button. Here's another button, and drag it on. Let's make a message box that turns up. Okay, I double clicked on it by mistake, so let's go back to the design, because at the moment I still want to change some of my standard settings. My standard settings are, I'd like the text on my button to say open message, and I would like it, I need to name it, so let's name my button into BTN message, and I would like my button color to be, for example, red. So there it is, it's nice and red. And what I can do next is I can do this, open up the coding for when I click. Now this is called the the event handler. Between here and here is the event handler for button click. So inside here I need to say here message, and there's a thing called a message box dot show and inside the brackets I've got a few things I can put in here. So the first thing is inside quotes I can put the message I'd like to show. You have clicked the message box button. The other thing I can put in here is whatever the title of my item is, and you notice it gives me lots of helps and hints on the way through. Some of them can be a bit confusing, but the second thing we want to do here is let's type, this is called your message box, and let's also have a message box button that says OK that you can click on. Message, and this is all part of this particular method or this particular item, message box. And you notice it's already in the drop down. Look, message box buttons. I can double click on that, and then I can say dot OK, and that tells the program to put an OK button in. And then I want to also have an exclamation mark on it. So then that's a preset as well. Message box icon dot, and there's a few of them. There's asterisks and errors and exclamations and hands, etc. I'm going to do an exclamation mark, double click, and that's just finished. And I've got to make sure I've got a bracket at the end. Yes, I have already, so that's fine. So now let's test that. F5, and so my hello world opens up. That's fine. And if I click on this, I get my message box appears. Here it is, your message box with the message I wanted, and also the exclamation mark and the OK button. Now obviously this doesn't do anything at the moment, but it's just testing the program to make sure it works. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back into my form, and I can select all of these things, and I can go format, align by the centers, and if I wanted to I could go in and change the sizes of these, etc. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to start up a new project, have a hello world button that gets the message coming through up here, and then make a message box. Okay, so you can scroll through this video as you need to. Okay, good luck.